To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text the long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever.
Hey, true crime fans. Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. After all, ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free true crime. That's amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Hello and welcome to day number 28 of 31 Days of Terror, and I have 4 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from September the 28th, 2024, and story number 1 comes from Anonymous. I worked at Manchester Victoria train station for many years. The railway, as you can imagine, was a paradise for anyone interested in the paranormal. The Victorian station is very ornate and has beautiful architecture. However, there are areas that employees simply would not go to alone or even with others. The office building saw a lot of activity and you really didn't want to be the last one in there at night. I was train crew and started and finished my shifts at all hours. It was not unusual to see figures in the windows 3 stories up. You would see lights switching on and off even though there was nobody in the building at all during the night. Older employees used to wave or say hello and goodbye to these figures. I used to put my head down and hurry past, trying not to look up. Other areas affected were the locker rooms. These were in a separate part of the station, next to the main train line through the station. They were located on the first floor. Many men refused to use their lockers ever. There was an atmosphere in there. It was always cold. One man I worked with wouldn't go upstairs to his locker. I asked him why, and it took several attempts to get him to tell me. He recounted that several years earlier he had been using his locker and was changing to start work. He had put on one boot and was reaching into his locker to get the second boot when he was pushed violently into the locker. He struggled to get to his feet as fast as he could. There was no one there. You would hear anyone running away and there were no hiding places. He noped it right out of there with only one boot on. Someone else had to go and get his stuff, including the errant boot. He never returned. Every 2 years, the train crews were tested on the rules and regulations to ensure that they were keeping up to date. The tests were done by inspectors. One inspector was testing a driver. They were sitting facing each other across a small table. The driver noticed the inspector had gone quiet and looked at him. His mouth was open, and his eyes were as big as saucers. He appeared to be looking beyond the driver. The driver turned around and saw nothing. The inspector got up and ran out. The driver quickly followed. He was freaked out too, even though he saw nothing. Outside, the inspector explained that he saw the top half of a man poking through the floorboards. Just the top half. The apparition just stared at the inspector for what seemed like an eternity. The inspector was dumbstruck. He was shaking for hours after. He also hated anyone finding out about this story or being reminded of it. Needless to say, rules exams were done in other places after this. Ghosts on the line were always being seen. There were tunnels on the Manchester to Bolton line where many troubled people sadly took their lives. One was a lady in her nightgown. She was seen so regularly that train crews didn't even mention it. Your first time seeing her was one you would never forget. You would report her to the signalman and he'd have to write down the report. All the time your colleagues would be laughing at you. They knew, and most of them had been in your shoes. Working the late trains could be stressful too. There were instances of doors being knocked on when the train was empty. All in all, a great experience and one I would highly recommend to anyone. Trains, train stations, railroad tracks, like they're such weird, spooky spaces. I apologise for using such a academic technical term to describe them. Weird, spooky spaces. And I guess in a way you can kind of live with lights coming on and off. You can kind of live with maybe figures in the window looking down at you that you wave hello or goodbye to. But being violently shoved into a locker, I'm not putting up with that in my workplace environment. It is so aggressive. And you'd wonder why whatever this entity is in the locker room is so aggressive. Obviously, he wasn't the only one to feel it. He clearly got, the real brunt of it. But other people experienced it too. And why so aggressive and why in that space? And I love when we get these actual apparitions where, it's the apparition is half in the floor. We only see it from the waist up. And that to me it's so residual. That apparition is still living a life where the floor was lower. And obviously in the meantime there have been renovations, etc. And I wonder if you were to dig into the logs of signalmen, how many of these stories would you find of the lady in the nightgown, for example? How many of those stories would you actually find? Because you can understand why you have to log them. Of course you do. Even if it's a well-known legend among the drivers, you would have to log it. So I wonder, if there was a Freedom of Information Act type thing, how many of these stories would exist in the logs of signalmen? And story number 2 comes from Pete. My partner Ryan and I are amateur ghost hunters. We have been to many locations across the UK, and some locations we have been to are Alton Towers, out of hours, when the park was closed. That's interesting in itself, especially when there are only a group of 20 of you. Woodchester Mansion, Kelvedon Hatch Secret Nuclear Bunker, the Clink in London, Doll's House on the Isle of Sheppey, and many more. So as you can see, there are lots of places. But the most interesting place I have been and had a fantastic experience in is Dudley Castle, which is where our story begins. Ryan, myself and a group of our ghost hunting friends arrived at Dudley Castle. It was a Saturday night in autumn. The night went as usual, calling out for stuff to happen and using the normal equipment. We were in one part of the castle and were due to move to the next. I was speaking to my friend Joe when the host said that we are now moving to the next room and to make our way through the door. With that, I got up and followed Joe through the door and into an empty room. As in, I thought I followed Joe into the next room, and as I stepped in, there was no one there. The room was empty. Joe wasn't there. So as you do, I asked where Joe had gone, and she was behind Sam, our other friend. Sam was directly behind me. Honestly, I didn't open the door myself to go into the next room, as Joe had opened it and I followed her. As in, I swear that it was a real human. I told Sam that she wasn't, as I followed her out into the next room. Sam told me that after I'd spoken to Joe, Joe then went to speak to Sam about something and followed Sam into the next room. I quickly checked the room that I was in. I then went directly outside from that room where there were no people at all present. Everyone was behind me, making their way into the next room. To this day, we still talk about it as it was many years ago, but it's been one of the best experiences so far. Was it a ghost? Who knows? All I know is I followed someone out of a room into another room where they disappeared instantly. You would have noticed if they went through another door, as they are all slow closing. They also have a bit of a bang to them, so you would have either seen and or heard the other doors. Look, I need to get on more ghost hunting, ghost adventure stuff because, fundamentally all of those locations sound really cool. Alton Towers after dark, the Clink in London, Secret Nuclear Bunker, Doll's House on the Isle of Sheppey, which is pretty close to me. And I love that what you saw was what you thought was a person, was a full-bodied person. You know, you thought it was your friend in front of you opening the door and going into another room. I saw this TikTok today, and obviously everything I know about the world is learned from TikTok. And it was basically this guy saying that, you know, in history, ghosts weren't always see-through, transparent, floaty things. At points in history, ghosts were considered like full-bodied beings, physical beings that had weight and substance and could, you know, beat you up if they needed to. I love it. What a great little story, and what a kind of great, worthwhile thing to happen on your trip.
To everyone else, this is a task. But to you, this is opportunity.
Switch to Boost Mobile and get the Coach Prime Moto G5G for $29.99 at boostmobile.com. The Boost Mobile network, together with our roaming partners, covers 99% of the U.S. population. Moto G5G for $29.99 when you switch with a new Unlimited Plus or Unlimited Premium plan activation. Online only. Taxes extra. All prices, fees, features, functionality, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit boostmobile.com for details.
Nah, not quite.
What's up?
Sell my car on Carvana. It's just not quite the right time.
Crazy coincidence. I just sold my car to Carvana.
What? I told you about it 2 days ago.
When you know, you know. You know? I'm even dropping it off at one of those sweet car vending machines and getting paid today.
That's a good deal.
Oh, great deal. Come on. What's your heart saying?
You're right. When you know...
You know.
Sold.
Whether you're looking to sell your car right now or just whenever feels right, go to Carvana.com and sell your car the convenient way. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, true crime fans. Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. After all, ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free true crime. That's amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
And story number 3 today comes from Courtney. I thought I would share some strange things that happened in our former house. The house was built in 1978 and in a suburb of Dallas, Texas. The family that owned it before us were a nice, normal family, and it was a nice, normal house. And I don't know of anything sketchy that ever happened in it. My husband and I lived there for 11 years, and I would regularly wake up in the night and a black shadow would be right over me. No hat, and it was just for a blink, but always enough to elicit a blood-curdling scream and send my heart hammering. It looked like a solid black silhouette, and I always thought it was a man, although there were no identifying features. If it had happened once or twice, I would think they were dreams, but it was consistent the whole time we lived there, and hasn't happened since we moved. I honestly thought that I would die of a heart attack from it one day, since I would go from being dead asleep to an absolutely terrifying heart rate instantly. It would mostly appear a few inches from my face, but sometimes I would see it in the doorway. This happened always when I'd been asleep, so I always brushed it off as a dream, and I never felt any weird energy in the house or anything happen in the daylight. One time I woke up to see it running across the doorway and down the stairs, and I woke up my husband and told him someone was in the house, and I grabbed the phone off my nightstand and called 911. He looked and nothing was there, and I felt stupid with the 911 operator once I realised this. I had to move the phone across the room after that, so I didn't do it again. Super weird, and I would have still thought these were just strange dreams, but it has not happened since then. So I just wonder what it was and why it happened. Like you always say, what do they accomplish by staring at sleeping people? My dad passed away a year ago. My parents had a song that was their song, Still the One by Orleans. It's a yacht rock song that is upbeat and happy. My mom and I had been in the car for a long road trip one weekend and had the station turned to yacht rock songs. In that entire trip, Still the One didn't come on. It is a popular one they usually play, and I thought it was weird that we didn't hear it at all. Then the next weekend, I was painting the bathroom, and as soon as I started, it came on. What is poignant about it was that my dad loved to paint rooms and cabinets, and he would always get excited to paint or when I was going to paint. I instantly knew it was him saying, "Hi Court, do a good job." What a comfort. Again, if we had heard it in the hours that we were in the car, I wouldn't have thought anything about it. But the timing of it coming on while painting seems like too much of a coincidence. Now, I don't believe souls linger or that his actual spirit was standing there with me. It's just kind of a message, I guess. I'm so uneducated, I had to look up what the heck yacht rock was. I was like sea shanties? Is that what yacht rock is? It's soft rock played on yachts. I also did look up the song Still the One by Orleans. It's a bop. It's a jam. I was thinking of Still the One by Shania Twain. Totally different song. This is a great song. It's an absolute jam. Not that I was questioning your dad's taste in music, but I just want to put it out there. If you haven't heard that song before, go and look it up. It's good. And I love these little stories of people whose loved ones just come back and give them a little sign from the universe in their own way that will only mean something to them, that they'll be able to hear and go, that's my dad, just saying hello and I hope you're okay. And it's really important. I love it. I find this Hatman story really interesting. I know you said he was a hatless man. So, hatless man. I find it really interesting because, like you said, it never happened anywhere else. It's never happened to you before, didn't happen since, but only happened in that house. And I really don't think you should feel stupid for having called 911, because you wake up and what you see is the shadow of a man run across the doorway and down the stairs. Of course you are going to think that there's an intruder in the house. Of course you are going to think, oh my God, there is somebody in the house. And actually, it's better safe than sorry. And let me tell you, those 911 operators, dear Lord, they put up with an awful lot of shit. So I don't think they would have minded that you woke up and thought there was somebody in your house. But it does sound very much connected to the house, and I can understand why you'd think, oh, these are just strange dreams. But if they never happened again, only happened in that house, and always the same, that's very strange. And our final story today comes from Grace. I'm calling this a time slip because I have no idea what else to call it. I was 10 years old and getting ready for school one morning when I went to let our dog Gromit out. After it had been a few minutes and I had finished making my lunch, I wandered outside to call him back in. When I saw a completely random lady walking through the gate from our neighbour's yard into ours. She looked to be in her 30s, seemed to be dressed in business casual, and when I asked her from our deck, "What are you doing?" she said, "Oh, nothing, just browsing," like she was in a grocery store or something. It just seemed so out of place, considering we were in a stereotypical American suburb and not anywhere near a business or a shopping centre. I got Gromit back up the stairs to the deck and inside, and she continued to meander looking around our backyard, while I slammed and locked the door and promptly called for my mom and told her what had happened. Unfortunately, by the time my mom came downstairs and went out to investigate, the lady outside was gone. In reality, I was concerned this woman was there thinking about stealing our dog or scouting to break into the house. But looking back, who knows? Maybe it could have been a time slip. It's more fun to think of it that way anyway. And this one is actually a time slip. It was about a year later when we had moved to a different house across the neighbourhood, and my friend was coming over for a sleepover. I was cleaning my room upstairs and getting ready, when I looked out the window and saw her mom's minivan pull into the driveway. I then watched my friend hop out of the back of the car and start coming up the driveway. I then quickly finished picking up my last few things when I heard the doorbell ring and I raced downstairs to answer it. Only no one was there. I then asked around the rest of the family if they had heard the doorbell ring and no one had. Not my brother in the office nor my parents in the kitchen. So I went back up to my room. Approximately 12 minutes later, I looked out the window and the minivan pulled into the driveway. I saw my friend hop out of the back of the car and I went downstairs when I heard the doorbell. The only difference was this time my friend was actually there with her stuff. I asked her mom when she came up behind if they had come over a few minutes ago but maybe forgotten something and drove back to get it, but she said no. looking back, that would not have been enough time for them to turn around and retrieve anything, but it was the only thing that I could think of at the time. In regards to your first story, I do know that it's often more fun to think about things like this as a time slip. But I wonder, rather than it being somebody who's like also trying to stake out your house, or somebody that is, you know, trying to steal your dog or is up to no good. So to give like a real world example, as I've told you guys, I suffer from chronic migraines. And this has been an ongoing issue in my life. And when I get something called an aura, which is like a warning that my body gives that a migraine is coming, I get really disorientated and I don't know where I am, and I will know that I need to like get help from someone or somewhere, but actually being able to get myself that help becomes really difficult. So what I mean is, you know, this could be a simple case of this woman being completely disorientated and thinking that she was somewhere browsing and thinking that she was somewhere where she wasn't. But as for your second story, I don't know what to tell you, right? Because clearly this was an elongated event. You saw the minivan pull up, you saw your friend hop out, you heard the doorbell, and then there was nobody there. And I know there will be people that will be going, hey, you were primed to see it or primed to hear it because you knew your friend was coming over and you maybe excited about it or really looking forward to it, which is fair enough. Maybe you might imagine hearing the doorbell in that instance, but to see the minivan pull up, see your friend get out, hear the doorbell, actually physically go downstairs, and then for it all to happen again 12 minutes later, sounds like a time slip to me. Thank you so much for listening to day number 28 of 31 Days of Terror. Thank you to Anonymous, Pete, Courtney and Grace for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from September the 28th, 2024. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
To everyone else, this is a task. But to you, this is opportunity.
Switch to Boost Mobile and get the Coach Prime Moto G5G for $29.99 at boostmobile.com. The Boost Mobile network, together with our roaming partners, covers 99% of the U.S. population. Moto G5G for $29.99 when you switch with a new Unlimited Plus or Unlimited Premium plan activation. Online only. Taxes extra. All prices, fees, features, functionality, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit boostmobile.com for details.